beaches without any plastic litter found on the shores, or oceans where marine animals can swim freely without being caught in waste. This idea can be achieved, but we should avoid using single-use plastics and adopt sustainable alternatives. Today I will talk about how our reliance on single-use plastics contributes to the increasing environmental destruction and growing health risks, and why finding alternatives are essential in protecting our environment and overall health. I understand the convenience and the affordability of these items because I relied on them myself before. Whether you have to,
What?
disconnected.
How do we know that? How do I freaking know that?
Correct. The right answer was a failure to communicate.
Now everything wants to fucking go wrong. Just keep like.
I know. I know. I didn't know I was going to disconnect. Wait.
Imagine beaches without any plastic litter on the shores, or oceans where marine animals can swim freely without being caught in waste. This idea can be achieved, but we should avoid using single-use plastics and adopt sustainable alternatives. Today I will talk about how our reliance on single-use plastics contributes to the increasing environmental destruction and growing health risks, and why finding alternatives are essential in protecting our environment and individual health. I understand the importance and the convenience and the affordability of these items because I relied on them myself before. Whether you're a busy student without silverware or someone who avoids washing dishes, opting for reusable substitutes such as compostable cutlery or bringing a reusable water bottle can help cut down plastic debris that would otherwise end up in our oceans or enter our body through food and water. Through my research on the environmental impacts of plastic, I've taken the time to understand the dangers and urgency of the issue and the importance of banning them. By encouraging change in communities and reducing our own plastic consumption, we can protect and improve our ecosystems and public health while inspiring others to do the same. I will address how single-use plastics contribute to pollution in our environment, explain how microplastics enter our vital resources and its long-term health effects, and go over some solutions and alternatives to these plastic items. First, I'll be going over how single-use plastics contribute to our pollution. Because disposable plastics are easily accessible, they are often thrown away just as easily, resulting in mass amounts of plastics overflowing into our environment. In the book Plastic Soup, an atlas of ocean pollution published in 2019, author Mikael Roskam-Abing illustrates how plastic has taken over our ecosystems and affected our marine life. Abing writes, research has shown that a single plastic bag closing off a patch of seabed can have disastrous effects on the mini ecosystem beneath it within just a few weeks. Water with little flow and a lot of plastic activity are more susceptible. This quote shows how even a small piece of plastic can disrupt the balance of the ecosystem and deplete our biodiversity. It is a powerful reminder that a reduction of using plastic is important, and that reducing the smallest amount of plastic waste could possibly protect delicate ecosystems. Using the same source, Abing argues that how plastics interfere with wildlife, specifically Laysan albatrosses found in the Midway, an assembly of islands in the Pacific Ocean. Although Midway is arguably considered one of the most remote locations in the world, water currents become transportation modes for plastic trash, as well as a mistaken food source for these albatrosses. Abing states, every year tens of thousands of albatross chicks die from a horrible death from hunger. This happens when they ingest so much plastic, including colorful highlighters that are found in the carcasses. And on top of that, there are bottle tops, toys, and golf balls found in the same bodies. Abing's recounts of various types of plastics found in the albatross reveal the tragic reality of our carelessness and the widespread impact that improper use and disposal have on the ecosystem. It reminds us that if we don't change how we use and dispose of plastics, it will eventually lead to the collapse of our food systems and damage the balance of our wildlife. While the effects of plastic on our environment is crucial to understand, it's equally important to acknowledge how microplastic pollutions enters our bodies through vital resources such as water and food. I'll go microplastics enter our bodies because of the overwhelming pollutants and how it affects our health. As easily as plastic waste enters our ecosystem, it also enters our body through the consumption of food and water, both of which already inhibits microplastics. A poison like no other, how microplastics corrupted our planet and bodies, a study published in 2022 by Island Press, author Matt Simon identifies how microplastics infiltrate the food web and how it ends up in our bodies. Simon details, a small species eats microplastics. Then a predator eats that small species, and a still larger predator eats that predator, which becomes a perpetual biological cycling of microplastics. In short, every organism is a part of the food chain. What one organism eats eventually becomes consumed. Relating this back to the quote, we are eventually bound to eat millions of microplastics because of the cycling of organisms consuming one another. Our constant disregard for the volume of single-use plastics that is disposed of has allowed this pollution to make its way into our own bodies. Because microplastic exposure is already in motion, various researchers have discovered multiple threats to our health that continued exposure can cause. In the February 2021 edition of Microplastics and Human Health by A. Dick Vadak and Juliet Legler underscores the current understandings and knowledge in regards to the health risks that microplastics pose to us. Vadak and Legler emphasize the health effects of microplastics are still being studied, but early findings suggest that they cause inflammation, damage to important cells, and disrupt the hormone system of humans. This article calls attention to microplastics, which are microscopic waste that originates from the breakdown of single-use plastics, and how they cause inflammation, cellular damage, and further damage to our bodies. By reducing our expenditure of single-use plastics, we can prevent the production of plastic waste, which limits the amount of microplastics that end up in our bodies for necessary resources of life. To protect our health and the planet, it's necessary to consider practical alternatives that can replace single-use plastics in our daily lives. Next, I'll be going over some alternatives to disposable plastics that I've incorporated into my life. Plastics were intended to make life easier, but it's ended up causing more harm than good. Luckily, there are simple alternatives that we can incorporate into our daily routines to cut back on plastic. For example, swapping plastic straws for reusable straws, bottled plastic water for reusable water bottle, and plastic utensils for more eco-friendly utensils. By using these reusable and compostable items, we can save money over time and avoid chemical contamination from these plastic items, while also opting for a much shorter breakdown time for the cutlery. Using practical alternatives to single-use plastics are essential to protecting our environment and ensuring a sustainable future, making it clear that action is needed now. In my speech today, I covered why single-use plastics are an overwhelming factor in pollution today, how microplastics get into our most important resources and harm our health, and that there are options to replace disposable plastics that are more beneficial to us than we think. Our heavy consumption of plastic encourages environmental damage and raises serious health concerns, which is why turning to safer and more sustainable practices is key to protecting our planet and overall health. I encourage you to do the same by reusing reusable and eco-friendly products instead of disposable products, as we can support changes that help reduce plastic waste worldwide.